Hi and welcome to this NOWA Forest training. Today I'm going to show you on how to configure and install the NOWA Forest system. So we will start with the installation of the NOWA Forest components. I will follow alongside the installation and operation manual, so you can follow as well. This document will give you all the different steps you need to take to proceed with the installation of the NOWA Forest system. Well, at the first page, you're going to see the table of content, but you'll also see the contents of the box. So what we have here on the table is the control panel. We have the wall bracket, and we have the external antenna. We also have wireless RON sensors, the wireless RON sensor cage, some screwdrivers, a magnet to activate a sensor, power supply, and a NOWA valve. You can have additional components added to a normal system. You can have up to 64 sensors. You can have additional valves. You can have a backup battery. So those will be covered in other videos or documentation as well. So let's start with the valve installation. So the valve installation, what is important to remember is that you want the valve to be not in a 90-degree or below angle. So you wouldn't want to have the actuator facing down because if the water or if the pipe starts condensating, the water could start dripping into the actuator and it could affect the actuator behavior or ability to shut off the valve. And over time it can damage it. So usually you would want to have your NOWA valve installed at least at a 90-degree angle like this, or up way like this, so that the water wouldn't go inside the actuator. Also, we have a split point on our NOWA valve body. So if you can see carefully here, you'll see that there's two black marks on one side and one black mark on the other side. This is to know if the valve seal was broken during the installation. Why that? It's because there's a split point in that valve body, and if you insert a water pipe inside the right part of the NOWA valve, you need to hold on that right part. If you're inserting into the left side of the valve, you will also need to hold on that left part. Otherwise, you're going to start rotating the valve body itself and it's going to break the seal. So to know if the seal is broken or not, usually we will look at the black lines to know if the seal was rotated during the installation process. There's no flow direction, so the valve can be installed from one way or the other. We do recommend using maybe a little bit thicker Teflon tape because a lot of plumbers suggested that it was a little bit harder to cover the interstice in between the thread. And of course, make sure that the valve is installed by a certified plumber. Usually they should have no issues to install that valve. They can also remove the actuator if they want more ability by removing the lock pin here, and by doing so they'll be able to disassemble the actuator from the valve. So you can remove it, you can remove the actuator and then put it back in if you prefer to not damage the actuator itself. Then you can push back on the middle pin and make sure that the actuator is locked in place. The next part is about installing the valve normally open or normally closed. So there's advantages and consideration you need to understand about those two types of behavior. Normally open is the less troublesome. So whenever there's a power outage or any kind of incident with the NOWA system, the valve will usually open. So you have a power outage, the NOWA system shuts down, the valve's open. The problem with that is that if the valve was closed, the valve will open. And let's say you were in vacations, you close your valve, and then there's a power outage. Then during that power outage, the valve will remain open, and then it will close again once the power is back up. The other way you can install the NOWA system valve is by installing normally closed. Normally closed is more secure, but can be more troublesome during a power outage. So what will happen during a power outage is that the control panel will shut down and the valve will shut down as well. So it can be difficult when you have no more power and no more water. However, this is more secure because if the valve wire is disconnected, removed, wrongly connected, if there's any kind of issues with the valve, usually it will automatically close. So we do recommend using the normally type closed valve because it is more secure. To alleviate the kind of issues you could face, there's other things you can do. So you can add a backup battery to the control panel that will make the system last for a 24 hours power outage with the backup battery autonomy. You also have the ability to use the manual override on the actuator, and that manual override is supervised by the NOWA control panel. So if it's kept open when the power comes back, the control panel will be advising that there's a manual overridden valve detected. The other aspect will be to choose the control panel location. So of course you want the control panel to be in the centerpiece of the building or the home you're protecting. But you also need to consider that the valve wire or the actuator wire is around 6 feet and the power supply wire is around 10 feet. You can always extend those two. It's a little bit easier to extend the power supply wire because it's only 2 conductors, so a 22 gauge multi-strain cable will do the job. For the valve, you'll need to extend with a 5 conductors cable using a multi-strain cable and 22 gauge as well. We don't recommend exceeding 60 feet because otherwise you will need to change the power supply that comes with the control panel. The next step will be to do the wiring of the different components. So in this case, we'll need to connect our power supply cables and our actuators as well. So here we have our wall bracket. The wall bracket is going to be installed on the wall using 2 screws and 2 anchors that are provided with the NOWA system. You can decide to pass the wires either underneath the wall bracket and on surface of the wall, or you can also install directly the wall bracket on an electrical box and you can fish the wires inside the wall so that they wouldn't appear, so the finishing will be a lot better. Otherwise it's quicker to install the cable on the surface, but the look of it is a little bit less inviting. To be able to do the connection, you can always disconnect the gray connectors here. So if you push them from the outside to the inside with your 2 thumbs, you'll be able to disconnect the terminals and you'll be able to do your connection. Once you have done them, you can pass it in the small hole underneath and you can reconnect your terminals by starting with the middle and going with the outside again. So let's go ahead and let's connect our power supply and our valve. So we're going to use the power supply cables. We're going to use terminal 11 and 12. So red for 11 and 12 for the black cable. Always make sure that you secure the cables correctly. If the stripped wire is a little bit more longer than it should, try to fold them together so that it doesn't extend further than the terminal block. You can always pull on the cable to make sure that they are secure. And then we go ahead, we do the same thing with the valve cables. If you do have multiple valves, you'll see that there's different connection to connect it. So in a case you have 2 valves, you'll need to use the valve and the auxiliary valve connection, and they will all have their own terminals to be used with. Red for number 13, black for number 14, and then we go ahead with the supervision cables. So white for number 1, and then green and yellow for 2 and 3. Once you have connected all your components, you can again make sure that they're well connected, that there's no strip wire that are being shown. That's it. Next thing we need to do is to connect our control panel on the wall bracket. So we take the control panel, we position it on the wall bracket, and then we're going to push it on each corner. Each corner should clip to confirm that it's been correctly put in place. And then we'll connect our external antenna. So without force, you're just going to push it a little bit and then rotate it so that once you meet some resistance, you just need to stop and the antenna will be correctly positioned. You can then use the pivot on the antenna to decide where to position it. Usually we would recommend to align the external antenna with the nearest window or external wall. To disconnect the control panel from the wall, if you need to redo your connection, make sure that your connections are correctly done. You can use the flat screwdriver and you'll have one insertion here on each corner, bottom corners, to be able to insert your flat screwdriver right there and just push it. You'll be able to do kind of a lever force. And by doing that, you'll be able to disconnect the wall bracket bottom, and then you can use the metal hole right there to be able to push the control panel out, out of the wall bracket. It can make a lot of noise. It's very firmly connected onto the wall bracket, so make sure that don't be scared if it makes a loud noise. It's pretty normal, just to make sure that the system is correctly firmly attached to the wall bracket. If you want to put it back again on it, you just push it back on it, each corner. That's it. Our control panel is physically installed. The next step will be to do the configuration of the control panel and of the sensors. We'll see that in the next video.